Hi guys, this is Jen and I make useful English Lit study videos on Shakespeare, poetry, fiction, literary devices and more to help you get top grades in the subject. So one common challenge that I find a lot of students face, especially when they're just getting started with literary analysis, is where do I even start? This will probably resonate if you're analysing a poem or a Shakespearean passage, because the language in these texts can often seem unfamiliar and as such confusing or even intimidating. There's quite an interesting counterpoint to another common fear associated with writing, which is the fear of the blank page. And it's interesting because where a page with absolutely no words paralyzes us from starting to write, a page filled with words paralyzes us from starting to read for meaning. But anyway, fear not, because in this video today, I am going to give you guys 3 quick and easy tips to help you start reading for meaning. And these are super handy entry points for any lit student who has to analyze poems or texts in general. So if that sounds like you, then make sure that you stick around and watch till the end to get all of the 3 top grade tips. Instead of worrying about what fancy literary devices you can or cannot find, start with the lowest hanging fruit: repetition. Make repetition your best friend. I know this may not seem like an impressive technique, but at least it will get us started somewhere. Because here's the secret. Repeated words, sounds, and patterns often create inroads to more sophisticated observations and insights about a text. Besides, most poems contain at least some repeated words or phrases, and we know that whatever's repeated tends to be important. Once you spot these repeated references, consider why they recur and how they might contribute to the poem's main theme or idea. Then see if you can step it up a notch by looking for repeated sound and syntactic, meaning sentence, patterns, a lot of which actually manifest in devices you may already know. For instance, repeated sound patterns could be alliteration, which is repeated first consonant sound, assonance, repeated vowel sounds, or rhyme, repeated similar sounds. While repeated syntactic patterns could include anaphora, repeated first word or phrase in successive lines, epiphora, repeated end word or phrase in successive lines, parallelism, repeated positioning of words in the same part of speech. Now, once you've identified these examples, you'll at least have a handful of quotations and observations that you know are important and that you can confidently start working with to create a line of argument for your analysis. By the way, guys, I'd massively appreciate it if you could hit the thumbs up button below, subscribe to my channel, and switch on that bell notification if you find this video helpful so far. This would really help me carry on making these useful English Lit study videos so that you can get top grades in the subject and we can inspire more people to enjoy the study of literature. Now, the second tip is kind of an extension from tip 1, but instead of looking for identical words, this time we're looking for words related to a similar idea. For example, if we spot words like growl, fierce, ravenous, pounce, and leap, then a unifying image that emerges could be a hungry, ferocious animal, and a related idea, danger in the wild. The technical term for this is semantic field. And it's especially useful as an associative tool for us to find a governing idea or image in what often seems like a scattered blob of convoluted expressions. Essentially, it helps us make basic sense out of poetic complexity, which is great as a stepping stone approach. Another way of referring to groups of words related to a similar idea is diction, which essentially means word choice. And if these groups of words are expressed in a particularly vivid and descriptive manner, then we can refer to it as imagery. And usually imagery comes in a certain type. For example, natural imagery, color imagery, sensory imagery, etc. As a quick exercise to challenge yourself, try identifying groups of diction in the following passage, which I know is not a poem, but it's the same kind of idea at work. Did you manage to spot them? There's at least two semantic fields that I can find. One related to the passing of time, and the other to nature and the vastness of landscape. Temporal diction is reflected in words and phrases such as ancient permanence, old, a year, a day, an hour, changed, remained, aged, long continuance, and the last geological change. Whereas natural diction comes through in references to the sea, the sun, the moon, the rivers, villages, floods, and deposits, etc. When combined, these distinct but parallel groups of diction about time and nature infuse the setting with a majestic and mystical aura, one that suggests forces much greater and more powerful than man at play. So you'll see then how simply by identifying groups of words that relate to time and nature, we are naturally, pun intended, led to a discussion about atmosphere, which illustrates my earlier point about how when you start with the basics, it can often be the best way to open up possibilities for higher level analysis. So my final quick tip has to do with structure and form, which are of course just as important aspects as language in any top grade poetry analysis. So a lot of students find structure and form difficult to grasp, perhaps because they're rather more abstract than words, which are at least concretely presented. So the easiest way to start unpacking structure and form is to simply observe the shape of the poem. What does the text's outline remind you of? Does it look rectangular, boxy, and uniform? Or is it wavy and varied in lineation, with each line length fluctuating considerably? Or does it clearly resemble an object or a creature, like a candle or a butterfly? Whether a poem is visually arranged in a neat and regular manner versus a haphazard and irregular manner could tell us a lot about the psychological state of the speaker or the key idea embodied in the text. More interestingly, if the nature of the poem's shape seems to conflict with the nature of what's being said in the text itself, then there's most probably irony at work. And anyone who analyzes irony in a meaningful way is pretty much a shoo-in for top grades. So here's a quick example of how this could work and what I mean. If the speaker is expressing a crisis in faith and her indecision about whether or not to continue trusting God, but the poem is presented in these regular stanzas of iambic pentameter with no rhythmic variation whatsoever, then there's a classic case of ironic tension between form and content. Because the shape is neat and tidy, but the speaker's state of mind is chaotic and all over the place. This then could reflect a psychological struggle between the speaker's budding desire to rebel against her faith vis-a-vis her sense of duty to obey and remain faithful and obedient, to stay within boxes. Poems that resemble an actual object are called concrete poems, which the metaphysical poet and Anglican priest George Herbert is perhaps most famous for. What these concrete poems signify would obviously depend on the poem itself. But for example, in the case of devotional lyrics like the ones Herbert wrote, presenting verse so clearly in the image of the object described could be viewed as a ceremonial gesture, almost as if the poem is a sacrificial offering to God. You'll see then that even an aspect as seemingly simple as shape could give us such a variety of rich interpretations from a text, which again makes it an incredibly helpful entry point for us to kickstart our idea generation process for any poetry analysis. And there you have it, guys. 3 quick and easy tips from me on how you can start analysing any poem, even when the text in front of you seems like a confusing muddle of words, and words. Hamlet illusion, anyone? In a nutshell, you want to find repeated words, sounds, and sentence structures, spot groups of words that relate to similar ideas and themes, and pay attention to the shape and outline of the text. Trust me, if you do these 3 steps, you'll find the analysis process that much more fun, easier, and rewarding. So I hope this helps, and if you enjoyed this video and find it useful, please do hit the thumbs up button below so that YouTube knows to share this with other passionate top grade lit students like yourself, so that I can carry on making these useful study videos for you down the line. If you haven't already, please do remember to subscribe to my channel and switch on that bell notification so you never miss out on my future weekly study videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video, as always.